There are so many challenges when it comes to teaching. Not only do you have to make sure students know the subject matter, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep students engaged. In most traditional classrooms, knowledge comes from a collection of processes, facts, and rules transmitted from the teacher to the student. Traditional techniques using simple memorization do not hold students' attention and do not lead to comprehension. We want students to be invested, not using their brains only as a clipboard and cutting and pasting what they've heard so they can pass a test. The aim of K-12 education shouldn't be to see who can collect the most facts. What good is a list of facts when they are not connected to real life or a useful skill? FUVi is a revolutionary new platform that goes beyond simple memorization of facts without context and brings you a new approach to learning. Grounded in neuroscience, this breakthrough platform optimizes and enhances the learning experience, reflecting the critical relationship between the brain, the mind, and the real world. FUVi cognitively formats lessons, enabling students to effectively retain information and use higher-order thinking, which is a prerequisite to solving real-world problems and making better decisions. FUVi is a science-based tool supported by understanding how the brain works and how to transform short-term memory into long-term memory and bring it to life effectively. With this knowledge, FUVi creates a new learning solution that keeps students interested in what they're learning and more motivated to learn new concepts and skills. By bringing learning to life and creating connections between topics and students' own lives, FUVi better prepares students to succeed in their future careers and lives. Nobel Prize-winning professor Eric Kandel once said, "You are what you remember." FUVi has taken this idea to heart and used technology to bring it to life. By studying how grammar structures language, neuroscientists have learned to understand memory structure better, allowing us to synthesize memory in ways the brain does. This new understanding has allowed us to optimize memory and thus improve our cognitive abilities. Based on how memory is created, processed, and activated in the brain, several classifications of memory have been created, including short-term and long-term memory. Short-term memory resides temporarily in the brain and decays quickly, if not transferred effectively into long-term memory, which more permanently resides in the brain. This frequently occurs during fact-based curriculums, as they only establish short-term memories, causing lessons to quickly degrade in the student's mind, making the hope of mastery fade with them. This type of learning is what FUVi calls L1, or the to-be link, and it is learning without context. While this type of learning can teach students by linking one meaning to another, it also fails to meet the conditions for storing short-term to long-term memory, this making retention more difficult and is usually associated with to the test or cram learning. FUVi, on the other hand, has created a cognitive format that bridges the gap between computer learning and the brain and creates L2 and L3 links. These more effective learning links put students on the road to mastery. The L2, or comprehension link, is where contextual understanding is brought to learning and the link between meaning and its context is created. L2 contextual learning can help people better understand what they've learned and is most effective when the learning episode is repeated or practiced. While this is an effective learning strategy, FUVi was created so students could master lessons and goes a step further, combining the L2 link with other episodes in one's life. When this happens, L3 occurs. The L3 link brings comprehension to a higher level, creating cognitive intelligence and true mastery. L3 relies on links, similar to those between segments of a scaffolding system, which is why L3 is also known as the scaffolding link. By building upon one's own experiences to create L3 links, students are able to enhance lessons and retain them for life. The contrast between the links may not sound like much, but it can make an astounding difference in a student's life. A student may learn about civil rights and the Montgomery bus boycott in class, They can learn about dates and names. But when a student sits in that same bus that Rosa Parks sat in and relearns what they were taught, the impact of the lesson is much more significant. Look at mathematics. A traditional classroom can create an L1 link and learn addition, multiplication, and algebra. This allows students to take what they've been taught in the classroom and repeat the process on a test. Think of this as if an artist has been asked to draw an interpretation of a picture a few times based on some basic descriptors. The artist might be able to get a general idea, but there isn't much detail. Plus, with how fast short-term memory erodes, the picture will begin to fade and lose what little detail it had after a while. However, when an L2 link is formed and context is applied, a student can get a deeper understanding of what is being taught. Many word problems have this idea at heart. By doing this, a student is more likely to remember the lesson long-term. Our artist has been given much more precise descriptors during this step, and the image truly begins to take shape. Plus, the picture now has some staying power, and the details come easier to the artist. When connections are made from one's own life to mathematics, the picture begins to form fully. By showing how mathematics is present in a student's life and how they can apply those principles, not only does the student gain a truer understanding of the concept, but begins to make pathways of their own. Students can be taught about the math that goes into opening a store, the analytics behind sports, or all of the formulas that went into landing ships on Mars. FUVi guides students through these links and gives the words and concepts they are hearing and seeing a more comprehensive and fleshed out meaning. The artist's picture is now fully realized with brilliant details and has even been given a unique twist based on their life and understanding and has great staying power. So how does FUVi help to create those links and guide students toward that picture? By studying the classifications and pathways of memory, we get a better understanding of how the mind works. Applying these principles helps us know how to learn and to think more effectively. To explain this, we need to introduce 3 more types of memory: working, implicit, and explicit. Working memory works with short-term and long-term memory to create comprehension, solve problems, make decisions, and transfer short-term to long-term memory. Explicit memory is a type of long-term memory that the brain uses to control actions with further processing using the working memory, while implicit works without processing on the working memory. Pathway 1, or P1, is the learning pathway where we listen and view the material. That information temporarily resides in our short-term memory, but it's not converted to long-term memory without meeting several conditions. Not paying attention can make the information decay quickly, and not doing further work through repetition can also make it so the information cannot transfer to long-term memory. The second pathway, P2, creates paths to the working memory to establish links between the known and unknown. The brain does this by bringing new information into our working memory and then adding information from our long-term memory to create an effective link and create explicit memory. You can easily remember P3 with 3 Ps: practice, practice, and practice. If we practice this procedural memory consistently on the brain's relevant pathway over time, the link between these episodes are strengthened and implicit memory is formed out of explicit memory. Basically, we can now perform cognitive tasks fluently without thinking. FUVi properly formats lessons so that users can more easily create cognitive links to the lessons that facilitate deeper comprehension and mastery. Lessons are segmented into CRUs, cognitive resolution units, that are 2 seconds long. This time frame is the average time it takes a person to speak a simple sentence or a line of poetry, making them succinct. The FUVi platform features multiple pathways and tools for communication and sharing to facilitate learning and understanding in different contexts, helping to bring learning to life. The purposeful design of the FUVi platform is to optimize memory and bring learning to life by creating cognitive links and processing memory on the brain's pathways. By forging these new pathways, lessons on FUVi create L2 and L3 learning links that leave long-lasting impressions on students versus the L1 learning links that traditional memorization techniques create. These links will allow students to truly comprehend and master lessons by linking them to their own lives. We all know and fear what will happen to students when they walk out the door. We see how much knowledge gets lost in students during the weekend, and when they move on to the next grade or graduate, you cross your fingers that they will have the knowledge and know how to succeed. FUVi allows lessons to go past short-term memorization of facts to long-term success. Lessons now go beyond the classroom to where they matter most, the student's future. We don't want this video to be an L1 link for you. Please think of us right now as well as going forward. We encourage you to utilize and explore FUVi and see how neuroscience principles have been put to use to create this breakthrough platform. Become a FUVi master and allow students to grasp even more from your lessons. We are what we remember, and we hope you remember us, so that you and your students don't just repeat the words in the dictionary, but create novels with fantastic endings.